Woo! All right, here we go. So let's get started. So a friend of mine once told me, Mark, you always seem to have a shiny thing. Well, this both surprised and amused me, and I started to think about what she said. I realized that no matter what I was doing, I did always seem to have a shiny thing. But one thing that has endured and stands out above all, as Tiffany mentioned, is my photography. Well, when I was 6 or 7, growing up in Cleveland, my father bought a Polaroid land camera. And, um, and now back in the early 70s, unlike today, nothing was instant. Whether it was local news, family vacation photos, or x-rays of a broken bone, usually mine, you had to wait for everything. So imagine my excitement the first time I saw the backing being pulled off a Polaroid image. There it was. I found myself looking at an image in almost real time. Well, I was hooked, and thus I found my first shiny thing, photography. But beginning any new endeavor can be perceived as scary, risky, or even dangerous. But whether I was joining the Navy to escape Cleveland and save money for art school, or my big move to New York City, the excitement of the unknown has always attracted me like a bee to the flower. Now, moving to New York was something I ever only want to do once. As a freelance photographer, every time I would think, that's it, I'm finished, all washed up, New York would propel me into a new experience and a new paycheck. That experience included photo assignments, which took me all over the world, and as well as assisting some of the most famous photographers of all time, Mary Ellen Mark and Richard Avedon, for example. Working with these great photographers opened my eyes and inspired me 1,000 times over. But once we start the creative process, when do we begin to call ourselves a photographer, a painter, a musician, or an artist? If you buy a camera, are you a photographer? Pick up a paintbrush, a painter? What is the difference between a hobbyist, a student, a professional, and an artist? Is it knowledge, skill, technique, execution, or how much money we make? Richard Avedon once told me that an art institution should never try to teach creativity, only technical skills. I wasn't sure I believed that at the time, but what he meant was we are all responsible for our own point of view. That if you do not know what your images are saying, then no one else will either. That if you create an image without intention, regardless of skill level, it is at best just a pretty picture. I believe it must be human nature to follow the pack, and if someone hits on something, everyone tries to copy. As creatives, we must be better than that. We must be fiercely independent. Intention over reason. We all have a reason for creating, but what is our intention? Content, regardless of talent. I heard someone ask, why must we make serious art? Well, here's why. Nobody cares about your work. Either the work speaks to somebody, grabs their attention, or it does not. And the more somebody knows about art, the harder it is to grab their attention. All too often, we creatives believe that our work will change the world. But I believe the change comes from within. Follow your inner voice. Explore. Create. Tear something down and put it back together differently. Use the leftover parts for something else. Find your next big adventure and work until it loses its luster. Then evolve. But how do we find or evolve our style? I believe that most creative people are not linear thinkers. They pull from a variety of experiences and create a new reality for themselves and their work. Lateral experiences lead to lateral thinking. Experience and lateral thinking equals creativity. Creativity is a muscle. Exercise your mind by getting out of your own backyard. People often thank me for starting CameraWorks Cafe, a photo community based in the spirit of Camera Work magazine, started by Stieglitz and Steichen in the early 1900s, and at the end on the creativity of the Cafe Society in Paris. We meet every second Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. at Redux. We have a guest speaker each month, and we have a great time. But what few consider is that I am the person benefiting the most from our little meetups. By organizing these monthly events, I am committed to making myself available. On top of that, I learned volumes from the monthly speakers, as well as everyone in attendance. Few people make the kind of choices that force them to take risks. But even in a corporate environment, you must leave and come back for the big promotions. Slugging your way up the corporate ladder is often not the fastest way to the top, and more than likely will leave you stuck in the middle. The risk of leaving is the reward. As an artist, you must have a devotion to your vision. Few people do. I assisted Richard Avedon for almost 4 years and had to work extremely hard just to get into the front door. And like a stray dog with a full stomach, I was not about to screw it up. So I worked my 3+ years and my 18-hour days, and I rarely saw Caroline. But if you can stay 2 steps ahead of Richard Avedon, then there is nothing that you cannot do. But that aside, one of the many things I did learn from Dick is that, to my great relief, I would never be famous. Dick Avedon had the intensity of a laser. And to say he was a slave to his own devotion might be understating my point. But more than that, the most successful people I've worked with, including Avedon, have always had a mix of humility and confidence. They tend never to believe a compliment, but are grateful for it at the same time. The reward as an artist does not come by monetary success, but by the work they create. Money only allows them to create more and bigger works. So push hard while you still can, while you still care, and have the energy to care. Remember, if you do not have missteps, you are probably not really trying. Do not rest on your successes, and do not get dragged down by your failures. Invent your next shiny thing, and remember that there is nothing you can't do. So I wanted to leave you with a mic drop, but evidently these things are expensive and attached to the podium. So the last slide I will show is a portrait of me with Sir Elton John, shot by Richard Avedon. Definitely a shiny thing. So thank you very much.